Hey everyone, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is Season 5 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
Are you ready for the confetti?
KK?
I don't know.
Ready for the confetti? If you're talking about confetti cake.
Ooh. I could go for some confetti cake.
You know, confetti
I could go for any cake.
is such a fucking annoyance.
Why? Wait, confetti cake is an annoyance?
No, confetti.
Oh, confetti.
Wait, are we recording?
We are recording.
Oh, well, welcome to episode 211.
211, yes. Sir.
211.
Yes.
I got mixed up in the 70s, like 170. You know.
No, you thought that you could not get the 70s.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 211. 211. What's a 211?
That's not a thing.
It's not.
No, I dialed 411 the other day, though. It still works.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, can you imagine when Mary J. Blige's album is completely irrelevant, the title?
Yeah.
Kids will be like, what's the 411?
Oh, they'd probably be like, what area code is that? that would probably be their first, thing.
You know what? That's so funny now. I hadn't thought about that. Like, a kid who's maybe 16, 17 years old
that discovers
listens to Mary J. Blige's album, What's the 411, which is one of, like, the greatest albums ever.
They'll probably read it at What's the 411?
Yeah, What's the 411? Like, they're not going to get
what that means. Yep.
Oh.
But that's why they listen to us, so we can educate the children.
Educate. Yes, that is what we do here at Pero Let Me Tell You.
Listen, lesson learn.
We educate the children.
Yes. Now that Whitney's no longer here, we must take up that,
How is everybody? How was everybody's week? We're officially in summer.
It was kind of a weird week because, Monday was off, and some people actually had off Tuesday as well.
Yeah.
And then you had to cram it all into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday
Somehow.
at work.
And meet your numbers or whatever it is you have to meet.
It was so annoying.
And do your Zoom calls. Está on Zoom. That's verbiage now. Está on Zoom.
That's true. Zoom has become the new Google.
Oh, you mean in terms of the verb?
Right. Like Google it.
Google it.
Google it, right.
Nobody used to say Netscape
Bing
it. Or Bing it.
Ask Jeeves.
Or InfoSeek it.
Yeah, no, not a thing.
Or AOL it.
Did you Netscape it?
Oh my gosh. The other day, this was so funny. Not the other day, a couple of weeks ago when Internet Explorer
went away.
After 20-some years. There was this guy that's I'm friends with him on Instagram that he posted something about Internet Explorer. Mm-hmm. And, it was like a tombstone. And it said Internet Explorer.
Oh, like,
1994
here lies,
through 2022. And I said to him, and this guy's sort of tech savvy. And I said to him, I remember the days it was just Internet Explorer and Netscape Navigator. And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, you don't know what Netscape Navigator is? And then I'm like, oh, you're like 28.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. You forget.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot actually with my trainer because he's 26.
Yeah, it's like
and so then I'll say things and it's like
okay, he's 26.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Windows 95 came out, it meant nothing to him.
No, he had no concept of language.
His old school Windows is probably like Windows XP.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, wait, there wasn't always a start button? No, there wasn't.
I see, like the other day we're at the gym, they were playing Usher, they're playing and he's like, oh man, I love like this, like this retro music. And I was like, oh, retro. Like that's
such a good song.
That's a great song. But I was like, he was like, yeah, I love this retro music. And I was like, oh. Just hit me right here.
Yeah. And to me, yeah, by Usher, like
that's new.
That's newish.
It's new, right?
Confessions
right.
era Usher, right? These are my confessions. You know what I learned about that song? Confessions by Usher.
What did you learn?
So this is the learn part of the show.
This is the learn,
especially if you're into R&B music
R&B,
and all
hip-hop,
this hip-hop music.
Right.
So Confessions by by Usher by Confessions, the song Confessions. These are my confessions. Yes. Just when I said that song, although it's sung by Usher, it's written by Jermaine Dupri, and
really
it's about Janet.
Oh,
yeah. Isn't that messed up?
Wow.
I don't know if that makes me like the song more or like hate it now, because it's like, oh my God, it's about Janet and we love Janet,
That's true.
right? But then it's about Janet.
Right. It depends on It depends on how you look at it, right? It's like, it's about Janet, or it's about Janet. Like, right, yeah.
It's sort of like when I said the other day when Beyonce came out with her new song, I'm like, I'm so conflicted because on the one hand, it's like, okay, it's fun and happy Beyonce
Right.
again.
So you're
but
welcome.
on the other
Right.
hand, it's kind of like, oh, but like I wanted to know where her evolution.
Right, what was
like,
next?
What was next? in
Well, I
the
told you, she's
evolution
already
of-
getting to older Dance Diva territory.
No, she still has story arcs in her videos in her.
But does she have romantic leads? That's the question.
But yeah,
Yeah.
man, that was a good album, Confessions.
That's a good album.
By Usher. That good album. Yes. Yeah, to me, like old Usher is nice and slow. You make me wanna.
You Make Me Wanna. That was the first single, right?
You make me wanna. Well,
first big single, shall we say? Breakthrough single.
Usher actually had albums when he was a teenager. Like when I mean teenager, I mean like 14.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say like
because Usher is our age, and when that song
yeah.
came out, he was like 7. When Nice and
what,
when You Make Me Wanna came out,
he was like
16, 17, 18. And he had albums before that.
Oh,
but he used to go by, his full name, Usher Raymond.
Usher Raymond.
Yeah. But we miss Usher. Where is Usher, by the way?
He was doing some shows in Vegas.
He has a residency too?
I don't know if it's still doing a residency, but since he's not Madonna, it was a residency.
But was it a residency?
He's not Madonna, so yes.
Right.
Anyone other than Madonna, it's a residency.
But then also the term residency is very loose nowadays because it's like, oh, I'm doing a residency
for a week and a half.
I'm doing 3 shows a week for a month. Like,
right.
So are you really doing a residency?
Right.
Like residency is like Celine Dion. They built the Coliseum for you.
Right. That she un poco más, she just lives at Caesar's Palace.
Yeah. Well, she lived in Vegas.
But I mean like in the hotel.
When they build an arena for you, that's a commitment.
Yes. You can't walk away from that. No.
That's tremendo commitment.
That is a tremendo commitment.
Anyway, so before we start with our shenanigans, I kind of wanted
Too late. Shenanigans have started.
Address something that I said in last week's episode, because one of the things that Ish and I strive to do on our show is that when we say certain things, we try to be correct.
We hope for accuracy,
but in the event that we're not, I think accountability and taking back something that you said, or at the very minimum acknowledging that there's another side to the story or there's more to it, it is a big part in owning what you say, because
so in other words, welcome to Corrections Corner.
Corrections Corner. Pero let me tell you, instead of Last Sodas today, we're having Corrections Corner. So last week I said that I talked about Bhutan.
Yes.
And I had mentioned how Bhutan was in all these lists as like the happiest
near utopian
country on earth, that people in Bhutan are super happy, that they're so happy that like the government of Bhutan has a limited amount of tourists and all that. And and I had seen this from some pretty credible sources. I believe there was a whole thing on CBS Sunday Morning, which
Drink.
is my holy grail.
Who had 8 minutes?
Stop. At least I didn't say The View, right?
Who had 9 minutes?
Drink. Anyway, these are pretty reputable sources, right? This is CBS or ABC.
Right.
And I had also read it again in like very big sources. So it's like everything, I think most of us know that even if we read something in a publication that is a well-known publication, there's always another side to it. But we often, many times, assume that this is either the truth or it's
been run through, people looking to make sure how it's truthful enough.
Yes. So yesterday or last week after our show aired, we actually got some DMs from a listener, Pero Primo, and we actually really do invite this type of stuff because, we don't
know what we don't know.
In this listener texting us, I learned something that I didn't know, and then I can go ahead and talk about it like we're talking about it now. So she spoke to me and she told us, she sent him some DMs that Bhutan actually has a lot of human rights abuses.
Oh, shit.
And it's very hush-hush. But Bhutan, up until the 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s,
So, not that long ago.
was accused, and there was alleged ethnic cleansing.
What?
Yes.
Shit, yo.
Yes, with the what they call the Nepalis, which apparently is an ethnic
Okay.
group in
Nepal.
in Bhutan, and there was ethnic cleansing, and there is gross human rights violations.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and there were laws by the government, especially like in as I said in the late 80s and 90s, that were flat out discriminatory against these groups because they wanted to get rid of them.
So it was,
They didn't want them in the
like a Rwanda situation.
They wanted them out of the country, and whatever it took.
Right.
Right. And the person who reached out to us, this was a friend of hers who was from Bhutan.
O sea, eso no es cuento.
Right. Somebody who was from Bhutan.
Right.
She was now living in the United States, but she was from Bhutan.
what are the
and
odds?
her friend that was from Bhutan would say she got so upset. She would get so upset when she would hear these stories of Bhutan being the happiest place on earth,
Right.
because she's like, that is propaganda that the government is doing all over the world to sell this image of Bhutan being this paradise and this
Right.
place where people are really happy, and it's not. And
Sounds familiar.
and that's exactly what I was
Doesn't
going to
it?
say. I was like, I completely get it, because that is the biggest argument that we have as Cubans.
Yep.
That we
Especially
know,
as we're gearing up on the first anniversary of July 11th.
we know the truth about Cuba. We know what goes on in Cuba. We see it. We've heard it. We know it from our families. We know it from their lived experience. I always make that whole spiel, lived
Yeah,
experience.
a ti no te vas a hacer cuento.
But to the rest of the world, Cuba is this paradise, trapped in time, where
Right.
you go and you have a mojito while you look at your Chevy
Right.
in this beautiful, beautiful Spanish architecture.
Because it hasn't been ruined.
It hasn't been ruined by Western,
culture
commercialism,
or whatever.
right?
Right.
So, I was like, you know what? Yes, thank you for letting us know. So, yeah, apparently, Bhutan is not the paradise that many people say it is.
Has
Or
it
I said,
improved since the 80s, 90s?
well,
or-
from what I read, because I did a little bit of research on it, it has improved insofar that there may not be ethnic cleansing anymore.
Well, that's a step forward.
Right, but there's still a lot of discrimination going on, and
Okay.
a lot of human rights violations in there. So, I think that it's important. This came from somebody who lived in Bhutan and whose family's from Bhutan.
Right.
So I think that a person's lived experience
That
is
kind of trumps everything.
that trumps everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
That trumps whatever show on report on CBS Sunday morning,
exactly.
whatever article the New York
Whatever
Times
meme.
read, whatever stuff you read
Right.
on
Right.
on lonelyplanet.com, all that, it
Right.
trumps it. So to our listener, thank you so much
Yes.
for letting us know, and to our other listeners, read upon Bhutan, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because I think it's important for people to have it's important to have a well-rounded image of anything and everything.
Right.
But if I'm going to go out here and say one week, hey, Bhutan is like paradise on earth, people,
And
are
somebody tells you
super
otherwise.
happy. and the reality is quite different,
Then-
to a lot of people. Then that's something that needs to be called out, and people can, if you're interested, read further and look into it further. But I thought it was very important to course correct.
Well, no, I agree with you 100%. I think that's something that, we take pride in here, which is we will talk about something, and then if we were wrong or we found out additional, information that colors things a little differently, we're not afraid to come back and maybe change our minds or revisit based on the new information that we have in front of us.
Right, because like if you hear somebody say something about like the United States, right? The United States, there's inequities to a lot of different people, right? Can you have a good life? Yeah, depending on who you are and what you do, right? But when you hear something like, ethnic cleansing, that's not there's no gray area in that, right?
That's not
There's
a discrimination.
right?
Right.
That's
right.
not like ethnic cleansing light. It's like, if a country or a government, well, there is a monarchy, it's a constitutional
right.
monarchy, is accused of ethnic cleansing, I mean,
Yeah, they're not just trying to make it so you can't get ahead.
we can't. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I don't know where.
I don't think there is anywhere you can go after
there
that.
is nowhere you can go from
That's
there.
you just acknowledge it and move on. Yeah.
So that's a very big no-no, and it's a very big awakening, I think, to other people who are not familiar with Bhutan or are familiar with Bhutan and the culture and the living there. That our knowledge is based on what you would say is more entertainment based reports and all that, or tourism. Again, because we know what the world thinks of Cuba.
Yes,
and
we do.
People's image of Cuba is, yes, Cuba does have beautiful beaches and
I know.
culture,
I'm not taking that away from it, but that's not the reality
the day of the everyday Cuban citizen.
Right. Yeah. Well, most Cuban citizens cannot go to the touristy places
there we
and
go.
all that. Well, who's maybe not having that great of a week right now? Mr. Boris Johnson.
Vite across the pond.
Yes. I hope he takes time now to go get a decent haircut. That's all I want.
I think that's his shtick.
It is his shtick. That's his whole,
He got booted. It's so interesting how that works in the UK.
He left before they asked him to leave, essentially.
Well, yes,
because he resigned, quote unquote.
Well, yes and no. So, do you know how that works? The parliamentary.
Basically, it's your party wins, and then within your party they designate who's going to be in charge.
Yes, but it's also based on confidence. So, for example, Margaret Thatcher, to some great Margaret Thatcher, also resigned,
and to some the devil Margaret Thatcher, right?
She also resigned. But I give her as an example because she's iconic.
Right.
Whether you love her or hate her,
right. You know who she is.
She's iconic, right? And she was the head of the United Kingdom for.
She was the same party, right? The Tories.
I forgot what part was she. I forgot
was
what
conservative.
party she was. Yes. But it basically over there, and I'm not an expert in British, parliamentary.
Despite my ability to get the slang right.
Right. But basically what happens is if you don't receive a vote of confidence, that means you lost your party.
Oh, okay.
You resign.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that happened with Boris Johnson. Like they lost no vote. It was I think
vote of no confidence.
I think it was I think he won. He did get it, but won a hair. But it was the writing was on the wall.
No, actually, it says that what had happened was the bulk of it, and a bunch of his people had actually resigned as well.
They had to resign as well, yeah,
in protest of him.
Right. It's a confidence. That's how they do it in the British parliamentary.
Right.
It's a vote of confidence, and then when you lose it, you resign.
Right. Even though you're being booted.
Yes, it's a very British upper lip way of doing it,
true.
right?
That is
We're not
true.
going to fire you.
No.
You resign.
No.
So, truth be told, this shouldn't surprise you. I love to watch the BBC, and I have to go to bbc.co.uk because if not, you go to bbc.com, and I don't want the American news. I want the British news.
Right.
And I also have the app on my Fire Stick for skynews.com where I watch the news. Sky News is their equivalent of CNN.
Yes.
So it's on all day. So sometimes for fun, I just watch it. So I actually love to watch the British Parliament in action.
Ellos? Oh, yeah, they don't give a fuck.
Ahí toda la finura.
Yeah,
went out
exactly.
the window. Porque esa
Mucho
gente se
resignation.
ahí de esa gente se dicen de todo.
Right.
Oh my God, clutching the pearls with their little
With
wigs.
the wigs.
It goes out the window. Porque, oye, they talk about Americans being barbarians. Listen.
Watch their C-SPAN, okay?
Listen, when some years back when Barack Obama was obviously still president, that he was giving the State of the Union address, and I forgot which politician it was that said, "You lie." People were up
they
in
lost their
arms because that had never happened. Y eso es una falta de respeto. I'm like, whoa, bro, watch the British parliamentary sessions.
Turn on Sky News.
Ellos no se tiran una piedra because
they don't have it.
one.
Right.
And I think it's hilarious because again, it's the British that they're so proper,
right?
And, we don't, the British upper lip,
right?
aristocracy.
Aristocracy.
Yes, we're so
just
refined,
yes.
not those treasonous Americans,
those trailer park Americans.
Right?
Yes.
And oh man, so I kind of watch it for fun time sometimes,
Okay. It's not a bad thing to watch.
Yeah, it's also good to know how the British government works.
Exactly. It's not a bad thing. But no, my favorite part though is so there was, I guess, protests or something outside, and there was a guy there. During the entire thing, he was playing the Yakety Sax, the song from Benny Hill.
Don't look back. That one?
No, not Yakety Yak.
Oh.
Yakety Sax. The Benny Hill.
The one from Stewie?
Yes, that one. So the thing is, it was so loud that you're watching some of like the BBC reporters like being all, stoic and being like, I'm here in front of 10 Downing Street. In the background, you hear like, and it's wonderful. I'm like, that's
because he was playing it like out loud, right?
Oh, a todo that.
Okay, you know what
And it was at the request of Hugh Grant.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Okay, this gets even better. Like, at the request of Hugh Grant. Oh, we love those Brits.
Yes.
I'm telling you, people say that I'm an Anglophile. The
And you are.
reason why I love British culture is because their sense of humor is like nothing else. Like,
right.
It's what they call wicked.
It's deadpan. Like,
Again, the thing also
you have to appreciate
the
it.
thing about British sense of humor is that it's camp. It's campy.
It's dry camp.
And Americans don't do camp. We don't really get it over here.
Because we look at camp as something that's cheesy and beneath us.
The only like something like drag queen culture and all that obviously is very camp. Like that whole lane gets it.
Yeah.
But aside from some groups,
and here camp is considered very gay because of that, whereas it's not in the UK. In the UK,
right,
camp is
their
camp.
humor.
Camp is just camp. Right.
But it's so funny. I mean, it's not funny, but how Americans just don't get get camp.
Yeah.
And as people say, explain camp, and I'm like, I can't.
I can't.
Wasn't that the theme at a Met Gala once? Camp?
I mean, whatever it was, Madonna showed up opposite.
Right.
She
showed up as a mime.
Exactly. Actually, that would have probably been the most on theme she was ever.
That's true. Right. They don't. So that's why I find. So you know what I think is so interesting about, now that you said Benny Hill, is that, so you probably as a kid watched Benny Hill.
Yeah, it was on PBS.
Right, and so did I. My parents loved Benny Hill.
My grandfather loved Benny Hill.
Cubans loved Benny Hill. How did that happen? Cubans loved Benny Hill.
You're right.
How did they play Benny Hill in Cuba? I'm thinking they had to have.
Well, I mean, yeah, because he was from this. I mean, the ones we were watching were old already, like, and they were like from the late '60s, '70s.
They were from the '70s.
So,
I mean, they weren't pre-revolution, but they were in color. So.
Right. No, but what I mean is that, like, it could have existed in Cuba because it's British. So I mean,
right, it wasn't American,
right?
Technically,
not a Yankee. So
yeah,
right.
not a Yankee, Because my parents and my family loved Benny Hill, and I think about it, like, listeners, like, did your parents like Benny Hill? Like,
well, part of the Benny Hill appeal, at least to a certain demographic of older Cuban men, with which I will drop my grandfather into. He had a lot of scantily dressed ladies and
so did Porcel.
But that's where I was going. I'm
so
like,
was Benny Hill and Porcel?
Yes.
No, Porcel was Argentinian. Yes.
Pero was Porcel after?
La Gatica de Porcel.
La Gatita de Porcel.
Well, Porcel was, I imagine Porcel was, I don't know too much the career
Probably
trajectory of Porcel, but Porcel had La Gatica de Porcel show, I remember, on Telemundo in the early 90s.
Right.
And by that time, he was like, everybody.
Sí, ya era Porcel.
So he probably his heyday was probably in the 70s.
Right.
Right? La Gatica
A la cama con Porcel.
A la cama. A la cam. Well, if your 26-year-old trainer is not going
has
to get that
no
reference.
idea what this is.
But again, how did Cubans end up liking Benny Hill?
Yeah, because I understand the English language and I don't understand what they're saying sometimes. Because sometimes they have a very thick British accent.
So does this mean that, like, 25-year-olds who watch one of my favorite scenes of Family Guy, let's have one of those sexy parties.
They appreciate it just for the randomness of the right. But they don't get the reference.
No.
Or maybe some do.
Maybe
some do, but I don't think most.
I remember that Benny Hill always used to start with a shot of the church.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's the Capitol, but it's not. It's a church in London.
And it used to end with I forget what the studio was, but it was the mirror image of the Thames.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Benny Hill. I didn't think we were going to be talking about Benny Hill on episode 211, pero let me tell you.
But we just proves the point that we've said many times. Guys, we don't script this show.
We retracted our statement of Bhutan,
and then we went to Benny
somehow
Hill.
we ended on Benny Hill. So, okay.
As
so
one does.
I have to tell you, this is not even a topic, something that blew my mind the other day.
Okay.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We know things can feel overwhelming, from jobs to family to relationships, even finances. And despite the stigma from Hispanic families about airing our dirty laundry, we can all use someone to talk to during those moments of stress. Well, we're here to remind you that there's no shame in admitting that you need to speak with someone to work towards improving mental well-being. That's where BetterHelp comes in to, well, help. A customized online therapy provider, they offer therapy options on your time, whether it's via phone, video, text, or even live chat sessions with a therapist. BetterHelp's customized approach matches you with a therapist in under 48 hours, based on what you're experiencing, to help you better understand yourself. And as a special offer for Pero Let Me Tell You listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/pero. It's already more affordable than in-person therapy, and now you can save on your first month. Everyone deserves to be happy, and BetterHelp has helped millions take their first step on that path. That's betterhelp.com/pero. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast episode. I think I mentioned it to you in passing, but then I started looking at pictures of it. So, just blew my mind. It, like,
Okay.
when I was a kid in Cypress Elementary School, right?
Okay.
In the 80s. Cypress was an old school. Like, I think Cypress was built, my school, in the 50s. Right?
That makes sense. Probably the first elementary school in this area.
Right. And I remember when you used to enter the cafeteria, it said cafetorium. The sign over the door said cafetorium. And I always thought that cafetorium was an old school way of saying cafeteria. Right? Hold on. Before. So fast forward, like 30 years to Tristan School.
Right.
Tristan School, Tristan School looks newer. It was probably built in like the 60s, early 70s. His school has a cafeteria, and it says cafeteria.
Okay.
Right? So I'm like, okay, why do some schools say cafeteria and some say cafetorium? Blew my mind. My school had a stage.
Yeah, so did mine.
Right?
So did
and our cafetorium was enormous, right? High ceilings, obviously the tables, and at the end was like the lunch lines.
Right.
But it did have a stage.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up, and cafetorium is both a cafeteria and an auditorium, and it blew my mind.
You did not know this?
Poof.
You didn't know
I
this.
can't know everything. My head is big, but
there's only so much information. Yeah. Right.
Blew my mind. Like I was like numb for like 10 minutes. I was like, and I started looking up cafetoriums online. Like I'm like, this is a cafetorium. This is like my school.
I
in
love
elementary
that you
school.
didn't know that.
Not a clue. I just thought it was a very old
like
way.
olden times.
Like we're going to the cafetorium to have supper. Like who the hell says supper, right? Like, actually, I know a lot of people that say supper, but
right.
I thought it was like a very old
For a
way
luncheon. Right.
to say cafeteria.
That's hilarious.
And it's like, oh my God, it's a cafeteria and an
auditorium.
auditorium. Like, oh, wow. And it makes total sense. It's like genius, actually. That they
Do you want more
cafetoriums?
cafetoriums?
I'll take it. Okay, how did you know it was a cafetorium? Did 7-year-old,
No. I didn't say that I knew this when it was happening.
Okay.
I'm just saying I didn't just find out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see why
I
you had a
I
cafetorium.
apologize for not sharing that knowledge
see
with you
why
earlier.
You have a cafetorium because where you went to elementary school, the layout and the building is very similar to my elementary school.
Oh yeah, our elementary schools are like
Yes.
it's a kit.
That's like we went to Riviera Middle School. Have you ever seen Rockway? It's exactly the same.
Oh, I haven't.
Exactly the same. It's literally the same building. That's like W.R. Thomas here in Miami, the school with no windows.
The prison?
Yeah. There's like 10 schools that look like that.
Right, but you know why, right?
Why?
Because W.R. Thomas was created during a time where
It's a great hurricane shelter.
they were okay. There's that, but I don't think that's the reason. It was the reason was actually they were trying to build schools in a way that would create less distractions for students. And so the idea was if you remove windows, they can't look outside, they're not distracted, they will be able to focus more on their work.
Wow. How psychology has changed in
Yes.
a few days. When I think of W.R. Thomas, I think of karate, but that's something else.
Well, so do I.
Yeah. That's where we took karate.
You know, we probably met there too and we don't even know
We don't know it. I'm sure we did.
I'm sure we did.
Because it was Frank, right?
Frank, yeah.
Yes. And my brother, too. Like, we probably hung out.
We probably tested together for all I know.
Right.
Like I'll look through some random
So
old
yes,
picture.
listeners, how many of
old
you
pictures. Knew
what a cafetorium was?
Well, it depends. I think also on your age, because I think that maybe schools now don't have that combination.
Well, because the thing is that when I
Newer
was in
schools.
school, people used to say we're going to the cafeteria.
Yeah, we didn't say cafetorium.
Nobody called it a cafetorium.
No.
It's just that I always noticed that above the door it said cafetorium.
Oh, I don't know if mine ever said that, but
Right? I always noticed it. And again, I just like, this was when the school was built in 1950.
Yeah.
You know, like...
it was a bomb shelter and a
This was
cafetorium.
before the Kennedy years.
Right.
Like,
The Kennedys changed everything.
this was the Eisenhower era that they built this school.
Mamie used to love cafetoriums.
Yes. So yeah. So there you go. That's another learned part of it today.
Yes.
You learned, listeners, what the word cafetorium means.
I feel like a Sesame Street segment. Like, cafetorium.
Auditorium, cafeteria, cafetorium.
Smush it together.
It's a cafetorium.
Cafetorium.
I think they should bring it back.
I don't know that it's gone away necessarily. I just don't know.
No Chico, but commercially. Have a cafetorium. Mira, you can have a buffet.
Okay.
Buffet
I'm
line.
already in.
Like something like the Golden Corral.
Okay.
And what happens is that you have a buffet line at the end, and then you have the tables in the middle, and then you have a stage.
So Chuck E. Cheese.
Where different choruses and different performing arts of high schools and all that around the city can come and perform at your leisure.
So-
while you eat your fried chicken.
So Chuck E.
and-
Cheese without the animatronic animals.
No, they got rid of the animatronic animals.
They don't have any?
Cheese. No, they don't. I was actually there last weekend.
Aww.
No robotic Chuck E.
Nothing?
Cheese. I love it how like Tristan was like, why are kids so into Chuck E. Cheese? And I'm like, shut up, because like 6 months ago you were like all over Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, he's over Chuck E. Cheese?
He was
Or
over
that day?
He was over Chuck E. Cheese the first 10 minutes he was there.
Really?
5 hours later, he was still at Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay.
And still did not want to leave Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay.
Porque tiene la peseta.
There you go.
Yeah, he's
There
starting
you go.
to think he's cool. And it's like, no.
Esa no existe en inglés.
The coin.
Yeah, nobody says like, oh, he has the age of the coin. Like,
What to use la peseta?
like what age range?
Yeah, to me it's 5.
No.
Older?
To me, la peseta is like preteen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we have different pesetas.
Yes. To me, it's preteen.
Listeners,
because,
what is
your,
la peseta?
Because to me, it's like it's that moment right before they become really annoying as teenagers, where they're still kind of manageable. So it's like 10 to 12.
Right, that everything is a battle.
Right.
Everything's a battle. So. Love is a battlefield.
I was just thinking of Pat Benatar.
La peseta, that does have no translation.
It has no translation.
Because coin...
Well, peseta is coin, but is it a particular coin? No, I don't remember.
I just think of una peseta.
Like una peseta is just like a coin.
A coin.
Okay, un kilo.
Or is that a moneda?
That's moneda.
Wait,
That's why I'm thinking.
what is peseta?
I think peseta's a nickel.
Is it?
I think at least
do
in
we have any
Cuba,
listeners that are good?
I think-
Peseta.
PESETA.
Well,
It doesn't come up.
The
Google.
the definition is the basic monetary unit of Spain. Well, yes, la peseta española, but you know what? I don't know.
I don't know, but we're gonna go with coin. And I don't know why it became the age of coin when you're just being a pain in
The
the
age
ass.
of coin in Spain.
Right. Like, I understand it's pesado, like, because you're being un pesado. I get that that's where it comes from, essentially.
You're being a heavy.
You're being a heavy, yes. That's like the other day.
Where did that come from? Eres un pesado. What does that mean? You're a heavy.
You're a heavy. That's the other day I was just thinking, the stock market in Spanish, it's
La bolsa de valores.
La bolsa de valores.
The bag of
values.
That sounds like a thrift shop or like a shop and save.
Where you go and you pay like $5 for a big ass bag and you throw everything you can in
Tuesday
it.
is our bag of values discount sale.
Right. Yeah, like bag of values.
Our bag of values. Oh my god. Oh, you know what was that reminded me of? When I was in my early 20s, I had a coworker of mine, very, very good friend of mine, who she loved salsa music. And she actually even went to Salsa Lovers.
Okay,
is
so
Salsa Lovers still around?
I believe it is. I just don't know where.
And she loved salsa music, and she was like total white girl.
Okay,
but but she was fun. She had the right attitude about like learning salsa. She's like, I know I'm never gonna be great, but I'm gonna try.
I want to have fun
and have fun.
Right.
And she loved the song "No le pega la negra." And one day she's like,
as we all do.
and she's like, Darian, what does this mean?
Oh, you had to translate.
Like, oh, no. I was like,
It's a song about
called
slavery.
Don't Hit the Black Girl. And it's a song about slavery. And she was like, what? And I'm like, Grupo Nietzsche. It's Grupo Nietzsche, right?
I don't think so. I think it's Joca Arroyo.
Yoga Arroyo?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm gonna look it up.
And I'm
now.
like, yes, it's a very troubled, lyrically, it's a very troubled song. Although it's a dance floor anthem
It is,
among
like,
the Latin community.
You put that thing on, and people will just be like, Joe Arroyo.
Yo Arroyo.
Not Joe.
Where's he from? Where's he from?
Oh, espérate. Joe Arroyo. Where's Joe? Where's Joe from? Let's see. Okay, well now it says that Safari cannot open, so let's see where we're gonna go.
This is another. There's a lot of.
He's
learning.
Colombiano.
It's Colombian. All right. I knew that the
He's from Cartagena.
creator of that song was Colombian. And I'm like, yes, it has very grim lyrics, but somehow in Latin America, this is the bop of bops.
Listen, just because you're educating people doesn't mean you have to be a downer.
It's funny because I remember being in my probably 20s at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And, No Le Pega La Negra is one of these songs that you just listen to and listen to and listen
And then
to.
one day-
To every Nochebuena and every
Right.
quinces and every
Right.
wedding and every
And then one
party
day
that
you
go
stop and listen to
then
the
one
lyrics.
day, right, I was like, oh my God. Like,
Yep.
this is what these lyrics say. This is awful. Like,
It's a very tragic tale.
So, yeah, when she asked me that, I'm like, oh no. Like,
Well, no, that's like that song. I forget who sings it now. Simone.
oh, about she's transgender?
Well, I don't know if he's transgender or just became a drag queen, but it's about a kid who's gay, becomes a drag queen, and dies of AIDS.
I think Simone, he was transgender. Like, he became a trans woman. Like, I think it was
you
just
think
a drag queen.
you think so?
Yes, like we're having here in
Okay.
whole-
No, because like again, it's one of those things where like because of the time it came out, that's why sometimes I don't know if they meant transgender or drag queen, because a lot of times like just in the context of when something was written and created, they may not have had the verbiage necessarily.
You know what? That's true, because I remember in a show that Cristina, she loved using the word travesti.
Yes. Well, that was the term.
Right. But travesti was, I think, okay. It's back in the early 90s.
Historically, yes.
They used to call it travesti.
Right.
Right. And looking back on it now, the way that it was used back then, which clearly was incorrect,
Right.
was to refer to both
Drag queens
at that time they
trans,
used to say
and trans people.
transsexual.
Yeah. Right.
But what they would say is a trans woman and a drag queen, which are not the same
Right.
thing.
They would interchange.
Right, exactly. They would
Yeah.
interchange.
Yeah.
Man, Cristina had a lot of episodes about travesti because that would be the only time I would probably ever mostly hear that word. And I heard that word a lot. Between her and Maria Laria cara a cara. Like,
Listeners, one of you should do some type of YouTube and just give us a tally. Give us a tally.
Cristina Travesti, Maria Laria Cara Cara Travesti. You know, like, man, like, they had a lot of it.
They really did. I'm just going to put it out there into the universe. If any of you listeners know how we can get in touch with Cristina Saralegui, please let us know, because we would love to have her on the show.
Yeah, she's somebody that of course, she has to have so many stories.
Oh, yeah.
So many stories. Because if you really think about it, and I think that this is something that, like, a lot of times when people like her, who had such a successful run and were around for so many years, I guess you can make the same argument of Oprah, but with her, especially with the Latin market, there's so many subjects that she hit that were taboo. That, like,
Yeah, more so.
especially in the Hispanic.
Because she was it.
Yeah.
Like, Oprah
Market.
may have done something, but
Yeah.
Donahue maybe also did it, and Sally Jesse.
And I mean, there were so many things
Yeah.
that she talked about, and people would, like, freak out.
And then there was, just Talia with her happiness.
Estoy feliz, Cristina, muy feliz. Acabo de terminar de grabar Marimar. Oh my god,
She was always happy on Cristina.
man, we're making a lot of old references in this episode.
We're enjoying our age, shall we say?
Remember old school Rihanna? Remember when she did that duet with Britney Spears, S&M? Man, I was like in elementary school. Like,
Oh,
well, if you think about
I
it,
know, but I don't wanna.
that song is over 10 years old. If you were in second grade when that song
you're
came
right.
out, you'd be in college now.
That's true. Oh,
Yeah.
the other day at the gym, they were playing Bombs Over Baghdad.
Oh,
That came out in 2000. I looked it up. That's the only reason I
it was
know this.
2000. Well, yeah, because that's
I thought it
from
was
the-
before, but
No,
no.
that's from the Stankonia album.
Yeah. And I was like,
that
man.
also had, remember what other song that had?
Eh,
Sorry, Miss Jackson.
Ooh.
I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. You know what I love?
What if Jermaine Dupri wrote that about
You know what I
Janet too?
love? I love when MTV did the Janet Jackson Icon,
Uh-huh.
and they came out. That's how she came out to that song.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
I
they
don't
were
remember.
singing to her. So
Oh,
another old reference.
another old reference.
Okay, let's get modern now.
Shall we get a little
Like, you know,
modern?
who's totally old school. Like, whatever happened to, like, Meghan Trainor? Like,
Meghan Trainor at this point has been around for almost 10 years too.
yeah.
Like, I mean,
I was in elementary school too when Meghan Trainor came out.
el otro día when CNN was doing all of their performances, all the singing, the artists performing all across the U.S. for 4th of July and whatever. Me dio una pena with the B-52s.
Why? What happened? They're old.
They're on their they're on their farewell tour.
Okay.
Fred Schneider looked like
How old are they?
they have to be in their 70s. They have to be.
How old were they when Love Shack came out?
They were probably older than we think they were.
Yeah.
Because the B-52s is
They've
one of
been around
those...
for a while.
Right.
Because Rock Lobster came out in, like, what, 1980?
I think late 70s.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now, but like, I just felt bad. Like, it was just one of those things where like Fred Schneider estaba ahí todo tieso. Cindy Wilson was like just standing on a corner, like with her eyes closed, trying to stay on key. Kate Pearson, God bless her, was still like doing a little shimmy, her little flequito dress. But it's like, it just made me sad. Yeah. So their first single was actually in '79.
Okay, so they've been about 42, 43 years.
It'll be because in July. So actually July 6th.
So if they were 30 when they came out, they'd be in their 70s.
Right. Fred Schneider is the same age as my father, 71.
Yeah. They'd be 71, 72.
Right. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, I feel bad. Oh, Kate Pearson is older. She was born in 48. So she's 74.
She's 74.
And she was the most active one on that stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's like everything, right? Like, nowadays, when I think of somebody in their 70s, I don't think of them as somebody old. You know?
but
I think the problem with the B-52s is that the B-52s have such a youth... I don't even know, whimsical
right,
image
yes.
that that doesn't always translate when you're older.
Right.
Because then what happens is that when you're older and you have that whimsical image, you look like a caricature.
Caricature. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. That's why good luck, Jojo Siwa.
Right. But then there's some people who can pull it off because, look, I think Cher can still pull it off.
But the thing is that Cher was never about being whimsical. Cher was just about being Cher.
That's true. I mean, she looks like Cher.
Right. Cher's her own category.
Yeah.
There's R&B, hip hop, pop, country, Cher. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the way it works.
Yeah.
I don't make the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just there's. But am I wrong? But yeah, I didn't think about it from that perspective. Like, they've always been. It's very like, you know, like fun, hippie, woo, look at us. You know, like they're like if Lisa Frank became a band.
Oh my God.
But am I wrong?
Yeah.
And they just look.
And then also
Their
the thing
age.
of
No, on top of that, they were performing here in Fort Lauderdale, Fuera del Sol.
Oh.
So like los pobres.
No.
And Cindy Wilson was wearing from like a turtleneck.
No, and also like their image is part of their shtick. Because, for example,
Right.
if you look like Queen, like a band like Queen, yes, I know they have Adam Lambert as their
But even
lead
he's
singer
kind
now.
of doing the I mean, that's Adam's shtick as well, but he's kind of doing the Freddie for 2020 shtick.
Right, but what I'm saying is that a band like Queen was never about the image. It was about the music.
Right.
You could even make that argument about my favorite band, like U2.
U2.
Although U2's younger, they're in their early 60s.
Okay, but still, I mean,
But U2, it was never about like their image insofar as like the way that Bono looked. You know,
they weren't like a hair band.
right.
Right.
They're more about like the stage and like
Right.
all that. But the B-52s is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
big
if
wings.
Kate Pearson showed up with like, you know, just brown hair.
Yeah. Okay,
Like,
again,
why
let's talk
bother?
about something more modern because, you know, again, this is date. I mean, the B-52s aren't even of our time.
That's true. That's pre us.
Do you like Love Shack? Do you really like that song?
I do, insofar as it's a fun song. And you know, like if you're out and you're like at a wedding and they play it, you know, it's happy, it's fun.
That's one of those songs that, right, if you're in a wedding or in a party and they play Love Shack, you're all like, Tin Roof Rusted.
Right.
Would I ever listen to that song in my car or on my own? No.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. Right. That's a sing along song.
Right. And that's another song they have, Roll
Rome.
If You Want
That's what they
to.
opened with. They sang that and then they sang Love Shack.
The world.
It's a pretty song.
Yeah.
Because, you know, who doesn't want to roam?
At least, you know, they didn't sing Everybody Hurts.
Oh,
I mean, I know that's not their song, but, you know.
No, she's Shiny Happy People.
That's all with R.E.M.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's just her. Because it's R.E.M. featuring Kate Pearson. It's not featuring B-52s.
Right, but...
See,
right,
no,
when that song
right.
came out and we were like 7, I didn't know that. Like...
Listen, I don't know what you were listening to at the cafetorium. Okay? I don't know what kind of music they played at Cyprus in the cafetorium.
The cafetorium. Yeah.
You know, maybe instead of the B-52s, you had the A-15s. I don't know.
No, what we played in the cafetorium was a lot of New Kids on the Block and Debbie Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that when in our 5th grade graduation, somebody won tickets to go see the New Kids on the Block?
Wow.
Yeah.
Coño.
That was like the big...
That's a big prize.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be happy with that prize now, too.
Yeah. And now the people that are in college were like, yeah, I won tickets to go see Rihanna, who was in her, first album, her first tour, Music of the Sun, right? You know, the old school Rihanna.
Oh, do you think we're going to have old school Machine Gun Kelly?
Yeah. But it creeps up on you because
it does.
Look, for example, I mean, not Beyonce. Beyonce's been around already for 23, 24 years.
Yeah.
Because Destiny's Child came out in 98.
Right. So do the math. Yeah.
Anyway.
Good times.
Machine Gun Kelly, por favor.
Do you not care for Mr. Gun Kelly?
Let's keep on. Let's move it right along.
It's because he's with Megan Fox.
Let's move it right along.
Real and fancy free. So I actually wanted to bring something up, which is so left field from where we're at now. I saw an article the other day that it was actually the Miami Herald, and they were talking about how, for all of its metropolitanness and blah 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 blah, how Miami was a difficult city to make friends in. And they were, and they were going to have like a panel to talk about and how you can meet people, that whole spiel and this and that and the other. And I have to say, I don't disagree with that. Like, I mean, I found it easier to meet people in New York than here, and I've lived here my entire life.
Yeah.
Like,
what were the factors?
So they said that a lot of the factors were things like transiency. So like a lot of people, which it's always something funny for me to hear because again, as people who were born and raised here, who our whole family is here, who we've been friends for X amount of years. It's always funny to me when I hear people be like, no, because Miami's just a very transient city. And I'm like, no, you mean Brickell is. Like, don't say Miami, because Kendall, they've been there for years.
Yes.
So things like that. Also the fact that people it's a lot of image consciousness.
Oh.
And so that prevents people from connecting.
Miami, where you live in inefficiency, but you drive a BMW.
Well, yes, but I told you why, right?
Why?
Well, because if it comes down to it, you can't drive your house, but you can live in your car.
That's true.
I mean, at the end of the day.
Although that efficiency is getting very expensive. I feel that, like, I mean, look, I also think there's here the culture is very. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I also think there's something to be said about people, and this goes back to like public transportation and like, everything is so spread out that I just think it takes more coordination for people to meet up and make plans. I think it's different tiers. Like for example, I think that this is I agree with it. I agree with the statement that here it's hard to make friends, but I think it's not one reason. I think it's a multi-layered and multi-pronged answer and different reasons why. Because, for example, I think, first of all, if you live in the hyphen, as they call it, you're Cuban American, you're Peruvian American, you're Colombian American, you're Venezuelan American, you're whatever,
Dominican, Puerto Rican.
If you were born and raised here, you have it's a different culture than somebody who was raised there, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what we always say. We're Cuban American. We're very proud of our heritage, but we don't have much in common from somebody who was born and raised in Cuba.
Right, somebody who shows up tomorrow.
Somebody right now that that is our age or
grew up in Cuba,
adjacent, who grew up in Cuba, comes here now. We don't have anything in common with them. Right. So now that shrinks our demographic, right? And that's the same for each nationality.
Okay.
So now there's like the Miami factor. Right? Okay, so we were raised in Miami. Okay, so we have that in common. Right? But now then...
But it also depends on the neighborhood.
There's different factions of that too. Because Miami's also it's like a city of extremes, right? You have your people that are like, like what you were talking about. No, we drive the BMW, man, and and life is good, and we go out and we get crunk.
We go to 11 every weekend.
We go to 11 every weekend, and then okay, that's not me. But then you have the people that's like, no, bro, we're gonna go party every weekend. We're about South Beach. Okay, that's not me either. Okay, no, we're gonna head up to Fort Lauderdale, and we're gonna. Okay, that's not me either. So then you start like. Taking out...
You keep shrinking.
Right. You keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Another thing also, I think, and this depends on, again, who you are, is that, for example, I've always been a lot more open-minded and liberal, if you will, than most of my contemporaries and most of my peers. So I'm not going... And it's not even now of the climate we're in now, but I generally... wouldn't so much associate with people that are like very, very, very conservative,
or cerrado, very cerrado.
Generally, that wouldn't be me either, and it's not even a criticism of them. It's
just
they
who you
would
are.
Probably say the same thing about me. Okay, that wouldn't be me either, and so like you keep like breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down, and then then you find yourself that there's not a lot of people that are. They're out there, but then when you bump into them, it's like,
it's I
think also another different thing, especially if you were raised here, and I think this is it's huge, is the public school versus private school mentality.
Oh, for sure.
And it's not even a criticism of people that went to private schools.
It's just different.
But it's a very different mentality
it's just different.
of people that went to public schools. It's very different.
Yeah, I see that a lot actually with Jose and like his nieces, because they were born and then they just put the uniform on them.
Right.
And like I see the way that they talk and interact, and it's everybody knows, and they're like, even amongst like with their parents, it's like, no, because you remember fulanita, da, da, da. It's like, my parents barely remember you. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? And it's like they talk about like all these people and they all know each other, and it's like, and I'm like, that's such a foreign world to me.
Right. And I think the whole public school, private school thing is that I think, you know, I was not.
We're the product of public schools.
They run very much in circles. It's like, this is our circle and these are our people. And
right. Historically, that's true.
You're very much in that circle. So, and again, it's not a criticism of it, but I think that really has an influence and an effect on growing up, you know, in who you associate yourself with. Not always, because we have very good friends that went to private school. But I think that, again, it's another faction on top of another faction on top of another faction, you know, and so on and so forth. So, do
you think, though, that people here are just generally more closed off to meeting new people?
Yeah.
Because I do
think you want something.
Yeah.
You have ulterior motives.
I love that you said it that way.
What episode of Pasa you say is that?
I can't remember right now.
He's like, you have ulterior motives. They think you have, you know, maybe you want to get in their whatever ridiculousness. You know, maybe you want to sell them, you know, I don't know.
Herbalife.
Huh?
Herbalife.
Oh my God, that's another faction. If any of our listeners sell Herbalife and would like to come on Pero Let Me Tell You to talk about your experience with Herbalife, please contact us at perolетmepodcast@gmail.com.
I don't know. I just think
that could be a Hangueando series.
Oh, that could be a mini series. This is what that could be. But I just think that, you know, I think there's that. I think people here are a little closed off, and I think it's a lot of what you said. You know, the reasons you said. But then I think
people here are very homogenized, and I'll tell you why.
But even people who are not from here become homogenized. It's
very homogenized
bizarre.
Because, for example, I've had friends in different places, and I had friends, for example, in Boston that like they knew people from Iran and from you know from Lebanon, and knew people who were Jewish, and knew people who were from Islam, you know, that were Islam, and knew people from South Africa, and knew people like. You name it, you know, in all different cultures and stuff. See, you know, it will be something like, wow, like, okay, my friend so-and-so can't eat this. So, but, you know, but because they eat and just like different cultures, different awareness, which I think a lot of times when you're not exposed to that, even if you're not an ignorant person, when you're not exposed to that, you're not exposed to it.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And then, you know, the thing also with Miami is that, yes, there's a lot of differences between different Latin American cultures. We're not a monolith. We say that over and over again. But at the end of the day...
More similarities and differences.
But at the end of the day, we are all from Latin America, so we do have commonality. Right. So
we get it.
So it's sort of a homogenized form in a way, right? So I think, yes, people here tend to be more homogenized, whether it's because, again, we all have Latin American roots, or because just Miami itself is a culture. So become Miami-ized?
Miami-ized.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a culture.
I would say.
You know, I just don't do the you. I'm sorry.
What do you mean the you?
Speaking from the person who went to the
University of Miami. Well, I don't either, so.
Well, you should.
That's where I went to school, and that it was lovely, and I had a nice education, met some good friends there, and
you moved on.
And I moved on. Yeah, like my best years were not high school. My best years were not college. You know what I mean? Like I'm not one of these people who wistfully.
You know that my best years were.
Really?
My best years were my college years. I was in a good...
Well, no, let me rephrase that. What I mean is I'm not one of these people who is all wistful of like, you know, oh, college was...
No, for me, the college years, I was in a great place financially because I was living at home with my parents and had a great job. I would always joke that I would take an international vacation,
I remember.
A domestic vacation, and a cruise.
That's right.
I was in a great place personally. Was in a great place with like friendships. Like it was a great time. And then law school ruined everything.
Well, again, I'm not saying that it was bad for me, but what I mean is I'm not that person. There are people who were just like, oh, the best days of my life, no matter what, was, high school. The best days of my life was college. I'm not that boy.
My college years were good, not because I was in college. It's just that
what happened during those
years.
Those
years were good.
Da la casualidad.
Yeah. Those years. I mean, I even went on TRL.
É
Taking them back.
É verdade.
Dating ourselves
again. Whatever, but I shared the moment with Jamie Lynn Sigler.
That's true. Once TRL 3 times.
3 times?
Yes, and I remember, this is so wrong. This is so wrong. You know how, no, I even think our listeners know at this point, how I am with my confidence. I'm not you, right? I'm Mr. Demure. Leave me alone. Don't look at me.
I'm very demure.
Don't
How
look at
dare
me.
you?
Like, why are you looking at me? Like, and I remember one of the times that we were at TRL, and this was like the one they did in Key West, so it was the beach one, that we were all in line, and then they came and they go, you, and they picked me. I don't think you were in that one. They picked me to be one of the people that was on stage.
Oh no, I only went to the one, and it wasn't that. That
was on stage by like their makeshift pool.
Right.
And everybody else was in the general audience, and I was like, did they just pick me to be on stage? Is it because I'm wearing a Massimo shirt? It's because I'm wearing a Massimo.
It's because you were just a hot little piece of college ass.
Not Massimo, no fear.
Oh, no fear.
No fear. It's because of that, right? So it's like I made the cut.
You made. Oh, now I'm thinking of the documentary
of Left Eye.
Yeah.
At least, whoever caught that reference,
you are of a certain age.
And I remember that this was the TRL that I went to at Key West. That day
weren't they all in Key West? When they did the spring break here, or the summer, or whatever it was.
But I remember that day, I was at the taping of TRL, but after, they were going to do a taping of the Mandy Moore show. And that's where I wanted to go. I was like, I want to be in the audience of the Mandy Moore show. Like,
damn it, we could have had a Mandy connection.
And this was like, Candy Mandy.
Which is how she refers to herself in that era, yes.
Musically is like the Mandy I don't care about.
But it was Mandy Moore.
It was
Mandy Moore. Wow, she must have been like, 14 then?
She was like 12.
She was like in middle school.
She was doing those Neutrogena commercials. You remember Rebecca Gayheart doing those Neutrogena commercials?
That's what she became famous for.
Rebecca Gayheart?
She started doing those before she became Rebecca Gayheart.
Wasn't she on 90210?
After she did the Neutrogena commercials.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
It wasn't the other way around?
No, she did. She was a Neutrogena girl, and then that led to other things.
Extraño.
This is a great topic. This is
okay,
so
I was
random.
about to say, que extraño, they didn't reboot 90210, but when I finished thinking about that sentence, I'm like, they did.
They did.
That's when, what's his name, died? Luke Perry.
Well, no, they rebooted it twice. There was a reboot series on the CW for 4 or 5 seasons.
Right, but that was like the new with another.
It was
another
cast, but it was a continuation in the same continuity because in the first season, Jenny Garth, Tori Spelling, and Shannon Doherty were in it.
Right, but the one that I'm talking about
was the right.
That's when they were playing versions of themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I like that one. It was fun, something different.
I feel that that's one of those shows that just couldn't make it now, because I feel that.
Well, they're making teen shows now, so it's not like they're kind
right,
of
but they're
visiting the formula.
Okay, but I think that what made those characters interesting in 90210 was the way that the different types of characters and their different backgrounds handled social issues at that time.
Right.
I think that as adults now, it wouldn't be, because let's say we continued these characters.
Right, where is Kelly now or whatever?
Right. I don't think it would be as interesting because now you're relying on the character, whereas then, yes, you were relying on the character, but it was with the set of issues that you go through as a teenager or a young adult.
Like, are they going to go through menopause now?
So now it's like middle-aged Kelly. So it's like...
Well, that's why I thought that take was interesting. Because it was, the angle was, hey, we're going to redo the show, come back. And it's like, them as, like... themselves, fictionalized versions of themselves.
Right.
So that could, at least that was something different because now
like what was one of like the most popular and funniest running gags there? Donna Martin graduates.
Yeah.
So something like that. How do you translate that to because they're all way older than us, like a 50-year-old
Yeah,
some
they're in
Donna
their 50s,
Martin.
yeah.
You know?
And my jovencito is Brian Austin Green, and
Right.
even he's like 49.
Right. So, yeah, that's a show. That's why there's some shows that just. That's why I really think Friends did the right thing in doing a career retrospective. With
Right.
the cast together, because what people wanted to see was them together
That's it.
talking about the show.
That's all-
That's what I wanted to see.
That's what I need.
right.
Yeah.
And I think with 90210, but I believe they've done that already.
Yeah.
too. So that ship sailed.
Listen, Tori Spelling just needs money.
She could write another book. I don't know.
I mean, and this is by her own admission. She's like, I'm not good with money. She says it. It's like, well, if you admit it, then
Well, she did grow up in Spelling Manor, or
that's true. But
her mom had two, not one, but two gift wrapping rooms.
yeah, but if you have a gift wrapping room, at least learn a trade.
Whatever. Anyway.
During Christmas.
soda time?
It is soda time.
Hablamos y bastante mierda.
Isn't that what we do every week?
Yeah.
Give or take.
So I know who I want to give my last soda to.
How about it?
So it's a commendable story that turned even greater. So
Okay.
there is this employee called Kevin Ford, and he worked in Burger King for 27 years, or has worked in Burger King for 27 years, and he never missed a day of work in 27
wow.
years. Never called in sick, never missed a day of work.
Damn.
Yes. So when this 27th anniversary came, Burger King gave him like a backpack and movie tickets.
That's it.
Yes. And his granddaughter,
For never missing a day.
yes, his granddaughter became very upset. And she just went, I forget which social it was, whether it was Instagram or I was going to say Kit Kat.
They gave her a break.
Yes.
Yeah.
TikTok. Or do you know Snapchat is still around?
It's there, I'm sure.
Right. So is MySpace technically.
Exactly,
probably.
yeah.
But anyway, she went on one of those socials and was saying like, look, I don't want anything. I just think that my grandfather should have been acknowledged a little bit better than,
Yeah.
A stupid backpack and movie tickets for not missing a day of work.
Right. For 27 years.
Well, they set up a GoFundMe and they raised over $300,000. So, yes, sir. So, Mr.
Wow.
Kevin Ford, you deserve that. I'm glad that, people did the right thing. And
Wow.
you know what? This soda is for you. So now you have a soda and $300,000.
And he works at BK, so the soda is a fountain soda.
Exactly. And we know how good fountain sodas
They are much better.
What is it about the magic? But the thing about fountain sodas?
The syrup.
No, it's that they are amazing, but just one little thing
Yes.
off and they're such a disappointment.
When they're great, but that's it. When they're bad, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm that person at the convenience store. I'm like, esta Coca-Cola está mala.
Yeah.
Like, come and ramp it up.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. Something is wrong. You can never put your finger in it.
The other day, I was at 7-Eleven, and that happened. And I wanted a big gulp with extra ice.
Con el calor que
Con el
hace.
calor que había. I wanted a nice, cold fountain soda. And when I got to 7-Eleven, they were all, like, flat. They were all watery. You know that brown water comes out? But I wanted a big gulp. That is what I wanted. And I tell the lady,
And that's their signature thing, too.
I'm like,
I mean, come on.
Can you? The machine is gone. It's not working. So I'm like, can
You say that like it
can
died.
I get a bottle of like Coke or whatever?
Right.
And just give me the cup. And she's like, yeah, come on, I'll give you the cup. Because I wanted to drink it from the big gulp cup.
Oh,
And
you
I
wanted to
did.
have the
And I
experience. You did.
My Pan de Bono.
Well, there you go.
Go ahead.
All right. So my last soda, I'm actually going to give it to Los Angeles County.
Oh,
But I'm going to read a story.
okay.
And which ends with why.
Los Angeles County as the county, the people, or the government?
I'm going to go with yes.
All of the
Because
above.
all I have is this post that I'm going to read. So I
Sure.
Okay. So in 1912, black Californians Charles and Willa Bruce bought a small slice of Manhattan Beach real estate for about $1,200. Okay, $1,200. Manhattan Beach real estate, 1912. They built a resort for fellow black families in the area who found themselves unwelcome at whites-only beaches. They even rented out bathing suits and sold snacks. And they were almost immediately subjected to racist attacks.
Of course.
Everyone from neighbors, the police, the city council, and even the good old Klan tried to close the beach down. The city even imposed 10-minute parking limits near the beach to try and discourage visitors.
Wow.
And finally, in 1924, the Manhattan Beach City Council just seized the property entirely, offering the Bruces a fraction of their asking price. Well, today, and this was posted about like a day ago, today, that stretch of beach...
I did read about this. Yes.
That stretch of beach is worth about $20 million. Again, we're talking Los Angeles, Manhattan Beach. And the Los Angeles County just voted to finally return it to the Bruce's descendants.
Absolutely. Amazing. Good
job.
job.
I mean, that is like, you hear so much shitty news on a daily basis, right? And it's and history sucks, so many times. But sometimes we get it right. It takes a while.
Yes.
It takes a while, but sometimes we get it right.
I did read about that earlier this week or a few days ago, and that's a great story. I mean, there's so many stories like that, right?
That don't have that ending.
That don't have that ending. That we don't know about.
Oh, and we never will.
Yeah,
and we never will because it was maybe never told to the descendants.
Yeah,
because por la vergüenza, or the just feeling of I don't want to talk about it and that type of thing.
When you were reading that, it reminded me, and I really another learned part of the show. I really recommend one of the most not eye-opening, but just one of the most sort of thoughtful or thought-provoking in the sense that it really, really makes you think about things. Books that I've read in a long time is Cast by Isabel Wilkerson.
Who was talking about that the other day? Was it you?
I read that book. I've read it 1.5 times. I read the whole book.
It was you. You were after Pim Pam Pollo.
Yes. I read it completely. And then that book is just so full of like historical like little nuggets that like then I went back and like skimmed through some of the parts that I wanted to, that really I enjoyed reading about in terms of like historical, things. And it's something that I really recommend people to read because it talks about the ideology of caste on how technically we are one race, which is the human race,
right? And
how humanity has created all these castes and all these subgroups and this and that to divide people and do a hierarchy of people.
Right.
I think when we were talking about it the other day, I was saying that the word outcast comes from India, where they have the caste system, and
still to this day, right?
Till this day, and some people are so low and down the caste that they're not even in the caste. They're not in the hierarchy. They're an outcast. Yep. So again, that's sort of like cafetorium. When you read that, you're like, oh my god, that is where the origin of this. Right. And that book it's really. And it's an incredible book that I really recommend people reading because I would imagine somebody who reads that book already has an open mind, but it's sort of telling to read this and see what certain people have been put through in terms of the ringer and how other people went. So just like, for example, in Cast, they talk about how like different community pools here in the United States. It doesn't only talk about the United States, right. For example, here in the United States, like certain community pools had to be they were open for the summer, and then the only time black people could go in the pool was on the last day.
Oh yeah, like they had like a Negro Day or type of thing.
Because then after the pool was closed, and they would drain it and clean it. Right, and that's the type of stuff that it's like, oh my god. And like she says this story, I forget the man's name of this little league team that won, and the black kid on the team who eventually went on to be a famous baseball player who
blanking right
so
now.
Upset I can't remember his name. When they won the little league championship, the team went to celebrate at a pool. and they wouldn't allow the little boy in. And the coach even talked to the people and were like,
Right.
we just won. Can we please, we don't want to, exclude him and whatever. And you know what they let him do? They got everybody out of the pool and they let him go on a little flotation device where he wouldn't touch the water, and they let him go around the pool once. And I'm like,
That's worse.
like, oh my God. Like, these aren't things that surprise you because you know that this happens.
Right.
But when you read about it, and you're
Right.
talking about like a specific example, it's like, and this is what people went through and continue to a certain extent go through. Not only here and around the world, but, including Bhutan. So
Full
just
circle.
tie it on to,
Nice
one of
little
the
bow.
first things.
Nice
So,
little bow.
Well, I feel there was a lot of learning in this episode, which is always good.
There was.
So,
Before we leave, though, I just want to remind people that we are going to be doing trivia at Beat Culture on Wednesday, July 13th. So if you're listening to this, we will be there at Beat Culture about 7:15, 7:30, give or take. So, hope to see you all there.
yep. And, we have another Ping Pong Pollo, but you'll hear about that
Yeah,
later.
that's going to be the 23rd of July, but
23rd.
we'll remind you.
But we hope you listened, laughed, and learned. And as always, remember to grab your pastelito and your croqueta and your cafecito. And thank you so much for joining us, everybody. That was episode 211.
Yes, it was.
I was going to say 112. Peaches and cream.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.